Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pitch Side Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates. Follow us on social media, the usernames are on screen, the links are in the description, and of course, listen on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. Welcome to the newest episode of the Pitch Side Podcast. We kick things off straight away as usual with the African Cup of Nations, and action continued in a Group D. It was yesterday, as you know, things were pretty predictable, I would say, in that group. No real surprises, no real shockers. Like the Group C, Ghana went out of the group, or Senegal were held to a goalless draw by Malawi. Nothing of that happened. It was more usual stuff in that group. Nigeria defeated Guinea-Bissau 2-0, and Egypt managed to defeat Sudan 1-0. Pretty pedestrian, I would say, games in my opinion, obviously, but the one difference is that Egypt won via free kick, which is, you know, not the best of looks before a round of 16. Of course, they're set to play the first or the top from Group E, which is going to be decided today. I mean, they haven't been looking good so far. I mean, they improved a bit, which is, I think, all important. Yes, they dominated the game, as usual, but they did the same thing against Guinea-Bissau as well, and they still won 1-0 only. I mean, they'll take it because they will want to qualify. That's the first objective, I think, for Egypt, obviously. There's been so many criticisms for Carlos Queiroz, the coach, for his choice of players, the way he was kind of dealing with things at the national level. It doesn't look that good for Egypt in terms of sometimes the harmony of the players, particularly in the midfield. They look like they have so many players in the midfield who can do one specific job but can't do the other, particularly on the offensive department. They rely on a couple of players only in that sort of building role to go forward. Obviously, the fact that he's been using, you know, the likes of Mo Salah, Mustafa Mohamed, Omar Marmoush, all of them not in the right places. He's been playing them as wingers. He's been playing them as central players. I mean, the central players playing as wingers and wingers as central players. It's really confusing, I think, if you are an Egyptian fan anyway. But obviously, the most important thing, they qualified. They have 6 points. They presumably will face, I think, I'm not going to say, I think it will face at the very best, if things go to plan, a shabby version of Ivory Coast. I don't think that this Ivory Coast is particularly strong, but maybe they're more coherent than Egypt at the moment anyway. In the other game, Nigeria continued their strong showings in the tournament. Didn't really have a lot of problems against Guinea-Bissau. The first half ended goalless, yes, but in the end they managed to finish the job. Of course, Umar Sadiq scored his first goal with the international team for Nigeria in this game. 1-0 to give the lead to Nigeria, 1-0, of course, and then he managed to score Trust Ikong, managed to score the second goal for his national team, giving Nigeria, of course, the top spot of the group. I think predictably, and we can't say a lot really because. And we can't say a lot really about that because definitely, you know, things are really, really easy for Nigeria at the moment, and things are looking good for Nigeria. Of course, we'll be playing one of the best thirds in this tournament, which, again, an even bigger, an even easier ticket to go to the quarterfinal, I think, for Nigeria. Expectedly, probably they'll meet an easy opponent out of those thirds of the groups. Of course, groups B, E, or F, which could end up being us anyway. In that conversation, and hopefully we don't meet them. Hopefully, don't qualify as third, because meeting Nigeria is going to be basically a suicide from the round of 16. So I think at the moment they're the best side in the tournament. Strong favourites, in my opinion, to win it. And you will see what they do in the knockout stages, as well as Egypt as well. Congratulations to them. The AFCON, of course, resumes, and we have 2 groups in action on Thursday's games. Of course, Group E and F round up the group stages, and we start, of course, from Group E. It's a big game for Algeria in this group as they meet Ivory Coast, and who would have thought it? We've been talking about Algeria if they will qualify or not. I mean, at the beginning we were thinking, you know, this game with Ivory Coast is going to be about the top spot of the group, but it ended up being about Algeria's whole faith in this tournament and whole deal if they qualify or not. Now, it's been a strange situation with Algeria in this tournament. Now, before the tournament, they were favourites. They just won the Arab Cup in Qatar at the end of last year. Certainly were undefeated on a good streak of nearly 35 wins. They were riding on this tournament high on the momentum that, yes, they can do this again. And certainly they have the players to do it. They have the quality to do it. I think the manager is good enough to do it. But I think they were shocked in a way by the saturation they felt, and I feel that it's a saturated side, Algeria. They won the African Cup of Nations, they won the Arab Cup, they're riding on strong momentum, and that happens. I mean, it happened to France after winning the World Cup. It happened to I think it happened to Italy right after winning the Euros. That's why they're potentially going to miss on the World Cup in Qatar. But a side like Algeria should find solutions to fine-tune themselves, to improve their situation in this tournament. Okay, the first game against Sierra Leone, fine. They absolutely, you know, had all the excuses, I would say, although not logical really, because they should know Africa. You play at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, you know, the stadium is bad and all of that, the temperature, blah blah blah. And you went on and have a draw against Sierra Leone, which, against all odds, Sierra Leone could have been winning in the first half of that game. Then you have the game against Equatorial Guinea, which was even weirder for Algeria, because there was no real excuses of such. I mean, maybe the stadium excuse maybe will remain, and there was a whole debacle about this in the before the third game, and maybe you saw the pictures online of the stadium being maintained, quotation marks, of course, because that's a questionable way of really maintaining a health of a stadium. Samuel Eto'o insisted that this is not their problem, and he will not change the place of the match, although the Algerian FA apparently requested that the stadium of Japuma doesn't hold the match between Algeria and Ivory Coast, and obviously that will open a lot of doors of excuses, I think, for Algeria if they lose. But again, this is not disrespecting the Algerian side, but this is telling the truth. They shouldn't be looking for these excuses. They should be just winning against Ivory Coast. Now, can they win against Ivory Coast? Yes. Is this Ivory Coast side strong? Kinda. Not exactly. We saw them against Sierra Leone. I mean, capitulating. Obviously, strange circumstances, of course, and the goalkeeper of Ivory Coast, poor goalkeeper, Badr Ali Sangare, who lost his father as well, as having an ACL tear, so it's definitely hard times for him. But even that, the result still, they'd drawn against Sierra Leone 2-2, and you know that doesn't really sound like a worrying thing or a terrifying thing. But for Algeria and for their underwhelming performances so far, it is definitely a bad thing to think about. And you know, the players that have been letting things on fire in Europe, I mean, that they're not really performing. I mean, Ben Sebaini is performing fine, but I think Mahrez didn't hit the target, didn't hit the peak of his performances at the moment. If they go through to the knockout stages, maybe they'll do, but I don't think that'll happen. There's a big potential. I mean, the potential of Algeria going out of this tournament at the moment seems bigger, just way bigger than them going into the knockout stages. But obviously, anything can happen. We saw it already in this tournament. Obviously, the other game between Sierra Leone and Equatorial Guinea, both teams are going to be playing for their chances. Obviously, Sierra Leone doesn't have anything to lose after grabbing 2 points from literally a couple of some lions. I mean, elephants, the Ivorian elephants, and from the Algerian foxes. They definitely would be proud of themselves, and they will try to play for their chance against Equatorial Guinea. So they will try and make this as hard as possible. Back to Algeria, just to round up. They definitely need the victory. It's a must-win for them. So they will try and be, I think, they need to be as focused, but also not as rushed, because I expect Ivory Coast to play calmer, because they will know that they will qualify anyway. They qualify as thirds. It will not matter to them if they qualify as thirds even, but they will know they qualify. It's Algeria who have the pressure on. It's them who have all the pressure in the world, not just because they're the champions of Africa, but also because of their poor prestations in this tournament, not scoring any goals, and definitely not looking as sharp as they looked in 2019 when they won that African Cup of Nations. So overall, it's a big game. It's a massive Must win for Algeria, no doubt about it, and, you know, hopefully for them, things will work out pretty fine and they will qualify to the next round of that group. As it stands, of course, Ivory Coast on top, 4 points, Equatorial Guinea 3, Sierra Leone 2, and Algeria, unfortunately, at the bottom of the group with 1 single point. And of course, the last group that remains is Group F, where Gambia plays Tunisia, of course, and Mali plays Mauritania. For me, as a Tunisian, I think I'm much comfortable now, knowing that Tunisia is going to be qualifying anyway after the loss of Guinea-Bissau against Nigeria. But definitely, still winning against Gambia would be a big deal, because qualifying a second is much better than qualifying a third, for reasons that I just mentioned earlier. Because if we qualify third, we're going to meet Nigeria in the round of 16, and that is not a good omen at the moment for our side. Obviously, loads of COVID cases. I definitely don't think that we had the best of performances just because the COVID cases were so critical, I think. We started by already having 3 players out. We missed Saliti in the first game. Obviously, we think that, you know, I mean, it's normal, it's expected, but I think it's weird. Also, it puts a load of questions about the health measures, about the protocols they've been applying, if they're distancing, if they're staying safe or not. But anyway, that's out of the window at the moment. The thing is, in the first 2 games, there have been contrasting performances in a way. Obviously, against Mauritania, I don't think I can judge it, even if we won 4-0, but I don't think we can judge it against Mauritania, because Mauritania are not exactly the side where are the measuring stick and where you're really going to assess your performances against them. Gambia, on the other hand, I think they're a really good side. They had a couple of good performances. They shut down Mali really well for the most part. I only conceded from a penalty. They defeated Mauritania and they defended really, really, really well. So the game is not going to be easy. Obviously, they're so good at the free kicks. That's my big remark, I think, about them from watching the game against Mali in particular. They're too good at free kicks. We shouldn't give them any sort of set-piece situations where they can capitalize. And we should be potent in attack, which is, I mean, it's just hard when you lose 2 players like Saliti and Kazri, who don't know how attack is going to shape up. But still, we should win. It's a must-win for Tunisia. It's a must-win to avoid Nigeria in the first place, and also to, you know, to boost the momentum, to prove that yes, we can play with 16 players. We can have a good match with only 16 players available, which is, you know, all the more interesting. We have the 2 backup goalkeepers out as well, so we don't have that option even. It is definitely not an easy game. I mean, before the tournament it sounded easy, but again, watching now the group, how it went, and watching how Gambia are top of the group at the moment, it's really hard to feel invested in this narrative that the game is easy. It's never easy. It won't be like that at all. So they have to be. This have to be an intense game from the Tunisian side. This have to be a sharp game, well focused. The players that will play should be really, really focused on just getting the game won and getting the job done, without entering themselves in the complications of should we win by a big score or not. To just win and prove that we can hang. We go to the knockout stages, and then it's a different matter altogether completely, as we will probably some of the players who have COVID will recover, and we have something near a full squad, because at the moment it doesn't look that good anyway. Good luck for us, hopefully, and good luck for Mauritania against Mali. You know, I mean, probably they're not going to win, but still, they should have at least a good game against them. At stand at the moment, of course, the group is topped by Gambia, as I mentioned, 4 points, Mali behind them 4 points, Tunisia 3, and Mauritania 0 points. Enough African football, let's move on to Europe now, and we move on to Laliga, of course. Yesterday there was some couple of games. Of course, Celta Vigo defeated Osasuna 2-0, but that's not the big game. I don't think that's the important game. The important game was at El Mestalla, as Valencia, of course, drawn against Sevilla 1-0, or should I say Sevilla drawn against Valencia 1-0. Of course, Mokhtar Diakabi scored an own goal to give Sevilla the lead inside 4 minutes, but Gonzalo Guedes equalised before the end of the first half. Now, of course, Sevilla, just to mention this, Valencia ended the game with 10 men. Jose Luis Gaya, the left back, and arguably the best player on the pitch, I would say, in the game, was sent off in the 90-minute mark. I mean, this is a result that is disappointing. There's no two ways about it. Clearly, a disappointing result for Sevilla, who are only 4 points now behind Real Madrid when they could have been 2. And they could have taken advantage of Real Madrid playing in the Super Cup and also having Copa del Rey action on Thursday against Elche, as well as Barcelona having cup action against Athletic Club. Speaking of that, of course, Atletico were knocked out of the competition by Real Sociedad after losing 2-0. It's definitely a game that Sevilla should have won, in my opinion. But, I mean, after the goal, they regressed in the back in a way that I don't understand. I really don't get why Sevilla are this ultra defensive. I mean, they needed the win. They were urgent in the first 30 minutes or so of the game. They scored the goal. I mean, technically Valencia scored the goal, but, they forced the issue. They then weirdly backed off after scoring, giving Valencia the opportunity to dominate them. They equalised, of course, eventually, and in the second half they completely opted for a counter-attacking game. Now, I really don't get it. I mean, I know that title-contending teams, depending on how you look at Sevilla this season, how you assess them, should have strong defences by nature. They are the strongest defence at the moment in Laliga. They still are, with quite a good margin. They conceded only 14 goals with the goal that they conceded yesterday. But they should have some firepower, I think. They're in dire need of some firepower. I understand that if you want to win trophies, you must have strong defences. But I think even the goal was an own goal that they scored. It was an own goal from Valencia, so they need some firepower up front. They have a good squad and they have some good players, but they're lacking enough intensity in that attacking department. I think this nature is exemplified not in this game per se, but I think in their 1-1 draw against Barcelona, where they sat back deliberately instead of taking advantage of Barcelona, who, honestly, they're in a better place as far as Barcelona are concerned at the moment from when they last played Sevilla. But I think this is going to be a worrying trend for Sevilla. I'm worried that over the next few years, they will morph into this Atletico Madrid 2.0, where they take a 1-0 lead and just defend it. They're good at it. They will be good at it because they have good defenders. I mean, they will lose Diego Carlos in this transfer window, which is going to be a big blow. But I think they're good at it. They need to know how to defend that. They can defend that really well, and it will be fine. But I think if they want to model how they can be having some firepower, they need to look no further than their city rivals in Real Betis, who scored 37 goals this season. And while admittedly Betis' defence is weaker, obviously, they conceded 24, but they need to take, I think, a page out of their book of how their attacking prowess works and think. They have a good squad, as I mentioned, not real great quality, but still good enough to push Real Madrid in the title race. It's a missed opportunity for Sevilla, that's what I'm going to say. For Valencia, it's a good result. They'll take it, although they could have taken better. They have this, obviously, it's another goal to add to their defensive frailties. 33 goals conceded by Valencia this season. Not a good stat at all. They're one of the weakest in the league, by the way. I think they're the third weakest. Yes, they're the third weakest behind Cadiz and Alaves, and both of those are in the relegation zone, while Valencia are 9th. So that is going to be worrying anyway. But again, just to cap it up, it's a disappointing result for Sevilla. They should have won the game. I think they missed a lot of counterattacks in the second half, which is not good. And as I mentioned, they still lack some firepower. Obviously, the absentees, the likes of Munir Haddadi and Youssef Nassiri, who won the African Cup of Nations with Morocco. It's an excuse, but not enough of an excuse, I think, when you are a side like Sevilla at the moment, with so much experience in La Liga, and I think better than so many squads at the moment of other clubs, and in a better place even than Atletico Madrid to compete for that title in La Liga anyway. To the Premier League now, and 2 games took place, of course, as part of the midweek fixtures in the Premier League. It was supposed to be Burnley versus Watford, but that game got postponed. And we had 2 games in action, of course. We had Leicester City facing Tottenham Hotspur at the King Power Stadium, and we had Brentford facing Man United in the Community Stadium. Now we start from the Leicester City-Tottenham game. I'm going to talk about it, I think, pretty quickly because I didn't really watch it. I was focusing on the AFCON games. I think it was a crazy scenario. I caught up with the last few moments of the game. It was unbelievable. It was ridiculous, I think. Crazy scenario how this one ended. Bergwijn with the 2 goals in the in the added time. 95th and 96th minute. Conte obviously played with 3-5-2 because there was not a lot of players available, instead of Son, I think. But that, of course, is nothing compared to the depleted squad that Leicester has, because they have Daniel Amate, Wilfred Ndidi, and Memphis Mendy in the African Cup of Nations, as well as, in the African Cup of Nations, 3 players. And obviously loads of injuries. Also Inacho, I forgot Inacho, 4 players. They have, obviously, loads of injuries. Jamie Vardy on the top of that list. You have COVID cases, suspensions, different reasons of why players are missing, particularly at the back. I think they had to make shift sort of defending in the last couple of games. But still, they had the lead against Tottenham Hotspur. They had the lead. They capitalised on the frailties that Tottenham have in the back. Sometimes their positioning is off the mark, and I noted that in the game against Chelsea. But they still have a lot of problems in the back. Their positioning sometimes is off the mark completely. But again, it's all about Leicester's capitulation in the end, how they managed to lose the lead in the added time. And the way they lost the 3rd goal as well, it was their own kickoff. They could have rolled the ball around, tried to play for the draw, just accept the draw. Maybe that would have been better than losing the game completely in such a ridiculous scenario, giving the ball away and starting a counter-attack that, was very, very effective by Bergwijn. Now it's weird also that a player like Bergwijn scoring 2 goals when he was about to be sold really from the club. There was a lot of reports that he's been on the selling list for Conte. He doesn't need him. The board overall, the club overall is not interested in extending the experience with him anymore. But he comes up with the goods now. Maybe that will change the opinion of the coach of the club as a whole. Surely, probably is going to start the next couple of games. They have a game against Chelsea, obviously, in the league, big as well, in the next couple of weeks, as well as FA Cup action, of course. So he's going to be a starter, I think, in the next couple of games. At least one of them, maybe the FA Cup game that they will have, he will start there. Again, big win for Tottenham Hotspur. It puts them right behind West Ham at 4th, which is a good place, I think. If you really want to compete for that top 4, games in hand as well for Spurs, so that's an advantage that I think they should be taking advantage from. They have 3 games in hand, which is really, really big as far as the top 4 race are concerned. 9 potential points from those games could see Tottenham even going in the top 4, maybe even 3rd or 2nd, who knows what could happen. Another game, of course, that was played from round 17, of course, was Brentford versus Manchester United. And, the 3-1 result doesn't tell the story of the game. Let's be fair about this. United, I think, were their usual self for this season. In the first half, mostly clueless in the back, and aside from Bruno Fernandes, there was real no creativity. When you look at that corner stats they were showing in the game, where they have 107 corners, they couldn't score any of them, and you add to that 5 on the night, of course. You don't really feel that United are in the best of shapes and the best of moods in attack. But in the second half they were better. They capitalised, I think, on Brentford's mistake, because Brentford decided to be open for a lot of reasons. Obviously, they were looking for the win. They were not going to change their style. Their team with pride, I would say. But they capitalised on the spaces behind the defence of Brentford. They scored 3 goals, 3 similar kind of goals, really, capitalising on a high line. Anthony Elanga opened the scoring, continuing to perform really well, and proving that he's a good youngster, and he could be the future, I think, for United, with the crop of talent that is going up at the moment, with the likes of Greenwood as well, Shortire, Hannibal, Zidane Iqbal. These crop of players in the under-23 that are going to be really, really good for United if they go up the first team and they get some game time. United played a perfect counter-attack game in the second half. As I mentioned, helped immensely by the line applied by Brentford. Rashford scoring is an important thing for his confidence, I think. He's been the subject of too much criticism. Nobody can denounce him off the field, but I think on the pitch, people started doubting, is he a good player or not? But anyway, it's a good win overall. It's sets the mood really well. Obviously, they're still in the top 4 fight. They still realistically manage a top 4 finish if they stay consistent, if they fine-tune their game a little bit. They still have games in hand as well, 2 games in hand. So it could be a good opportunity for United to catch up as far as the top 4 battle is concerned. I finished by saying one thing really about Ronaldo, who didn't seem happy after being subbed for 70 minutes of the game. I mean, I don't change my stance. I think if you didn't play well, you get subbed, whoever you are. I'm not going to tweak it because it's Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, yes, he could create anything at any moment, but I'm not going to tweak my principles here. If you don't play well, you deserve to be subbed at the very best, and Ronaldo is not really effective in this game anyway. Important win for United, as I mentioned, still in the top 4. We'll see how the rest of the season goes for them. I mean, thematically, we're still in the Premier League, but I don't think it's exactly, we're talking about action, of course. We're talking about Chelsea now, who have been, I would say, on the news, under serious scrutiny. I've been under the lights. You know, say whatever you want to say. Any expression that, you know, means criticism, have been thrown at Chelsea at the moment, and they definitely, I think, deserve it in a way. Their results have been so poor, as of late. I mean, since the turn of the year, since the Christmas fixtures, the festive fixtures, they haven't been that good. They've been dropping points needlessly, I would say, in certain games. You know, the draw against Wolves, the draw against Brighton, the draw against Liverpool, the loss. I mean, the loss against City. We can't really debate it. Again, City were better in that game, so no ifs, buts, and maybes. But still, there's a lot of questions about Chelsea at the moment. Why in such a bad form? And the big remark I think about them is, you know, lack of attacking quality. Now, just to put this into perspective, Ziyech scored 5 goals overall, Havertz as well. Werner barely beats them with 6 goals. Lukaku, the 150 million euro signing, Lukaku, 8 goals. Just to put it into perspective, Jorginho is the top scorer for Chelsea now with 9 goals in all competitions. Reece James and Chilwell together having 7. Rudiger scores, Thiago Silva scores, Chalobah scores, Kovacic scores. It might sound good, and it sounded good, and it was good at a certain point of the season when they weren't conceding, when they weren't losing, when they weren't dropping points, where goals could come up from anywhere on the field, and they were winning by 2-0, 1-0, and 2-1 and all of that. That was good at the time. But not now, when they lost their complete potency in the attack. Lukaku doesn't score, and that's a whole lot debacle with him that we went, you know, we went through it, and we talked about it here, so I don't really want to repeat it. It's definitely a big issue, I think, for Chelsea, this lack of attacking quality, the defensive issues that are now popping up. I mean, at one point of the season, we were questioning if they're going to be breaking the record of the strongest defense of the league. I mean, now we're talking about Chelsea not keeping clean sheets at all. I mean, it's been like 6 or 7 games where they couldn't keep a clean sheet completely, and that is weird. They even conceded in the FA Cup. So you have to ask yourself, where's the issue? What is the problem? Is it a Tuchel problem? Is it injuries? You know, obviously it has a lot to do with that when you lose your best wing backs in Chilwell and Reece James. You know, you have various amount of injuries around the season. Lukaku went down injured. You have Werner went down injured. Havertz went down injured. Mount went down injured. Kovacic went down injured. Jorginho went down injured at a certain point. Conte as well. So you have these injuries coming at various times, affecting the flow of your season. That is definitely not an excuse, but I think a reason that can explain why Chelsea are so bad. But for a side that is the European champions and loaded as one of the top contenders for the title race this season, which obviously I think they're out of now after dropping 9 points in the last 4 games. I mean, a side that looks like they can't do what the manager's asking them. I mean, the system that Tuchel wants to play seems to be perfectly fine for another squad. I think Chelsea at the moment, they can't do it. They're oversaturated, I think, by what Tuchel is saying. Overly intense. Sometimes, you know, they you feel that they don't have enough in them to carry on the plan until the end, sometimes until the 90. But certainly looking at Chelsea at the moment, they can turn it around. They have to look at their season and say, oh, you know what? We have the FA Cup, we have the Carabao Cup to play for, we still have the Champions League to play for, we have our chances in those competitions. We can have a good season out of winning 2, maybe of those 3. But still, you might have those problems pop in and causing you to exit out of those competitions, particularly the Champions League, like not necessarily Carabao Cup or the FA Cup anyway, but I think the Champions League is where the money lies for Chelsea. And the board for Chelsea is not a patient one. Abramovich as an owner is not a patient owner. We know that he likes to sack people before. He sacked Jose Mourinho after winning the league. He sacked Roberto Di Matteo after winning the Champions League for him. It's definitely an interesting situation because Thomas Tuchel, had his contract extended and had good talks with Abramovich right after winning the Champions League. So you could only assume what's going inside the head of Abramovich now, seeing his team struggle offensively, seeing his team struggle defensively, seeing his team not being in the title race, 13 points, 12 points at the moment behind Man City. A big gap, I think, between them and Man City, not just in terms of points, but also in terms of quality. They don't feel like they're close to City at the moment. At a certain points, they were, and even they were above them, it felt. But now, I think they've been schooled. They've been taught a lesson by City over the 2 games they had against them. And genuinely, it doesn't feel that Chelsea are above the ceiling they set for themselves. They feel like they're way, way below bar. And for European champions to... I'm not going to say capitulate because that's a big word, but it's about standards, I think. It's definitely about standards and criteria. If you're talking about the European champions, this can be called capitulation, and this can be called really a bad season overall, but still, it's not over. As I mentioned, they could win 2 out of the 3 titles that are left, even the 3 of them. It could happen, and they could save their season. They could end up having, a decent season. It won't be a great season because people will look at this period and would say, they missed on the Premier League title race and they gave it to Man City. But again, I don't really see any world where Chelsea doesn't win at least the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. I really don't see it. They have to win one of those to keep faith in Tuchel, to keep faith in the squad, to keep faith in the system. They have players potentially leaving in the summer. So they have to be rearranging certain things, obviously. And again, the failings that they have, the Lukaku issue, the whole injuries and COVID issues, and genuine general, I think, sort of mood with the club changed within the last couple of months with these results. Obviously, they will set you in a bad mood. So we'll look at Chelsea and we'll see how the season will go on. We will try and follow how the season is going to go, and we'll see if there's any changes again. That's it for this episode. That caps it off. Thank you for watching / listening. Follow us on social media. The usernames are on the screen and the links on the description. Of course, listen on the podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, any platform you want to. And of course, support us to reach the 2K subscribers mark before the end of the AFCON, hopefully. And I thank you. I was your host, HOD of the PSP, and I'll see you in the next episode tomorrow.
Doors, I'm a fool for your love.